Fear tells lies. Good morning, David. Tell me more.
Good morning, James. Thank you for inviting me on here. It's a real privilege. Yeah, fear tells lies. It's something I heard in a meeting about 5, 6, 7 years ago. I can't remember. I was in my mid 50s. I'm 60. I'll be 62 next month. So I was in my mid 50s, riddled with self-centered fear and anxiety. That low self-worth, that feeling of impending doom. It was just terrible. And a friend of mine come out with a statement. She's, you know what it's like, fear tells lies. And it was a throwaway comment, but that's been the sort of the backdrop of my life for the last sort of 8 years or what. I can't even remember when it was. It's been a good 5 or 6 years. And since then, I've written a book called Fear Tells Lies. I go into schools and I deliver my poetry sessions to primary schools. As well as all the funny poems, I tell the children about Fear Tells Lies. I've delivered keynotes to businesses and I've given workshops in secondary schools based around Fear Tells Lies. So, yeah, and I can expand on that if you want me to.
It's kind of, I know from recording podcasts that how, I don't know, each time I've recorded 50 or 60 podcast episodes now. And what I noticed was in myself when I record them is that quite often I sweat a lot when I'm literally about to come on. And I noticed that as well, I might go and pop to the toilet 3 or 4 different times in 10-minute periods before
Yeah,
I jump on. And yeah, I feel as though I am quite confident in myself and what I do and going around and meeting people. But I feel almost like sometimes your body is almost telling you that you still have that fear within inside you.
absolutely. And you're right. And I think the distinction we have to make is people use the word fear and anxiety interchangeably, but they're both very different beasts. Fear is the immediate threat of danger. For example, if you and I were going back to, prehistoric times, you and I are both cave dwellers and we're going out to look for food. And we're going along and we see a little squiggly, wriggly thing going along the floor. We now know it's called a snake. And it rises up and it bites you. You either die or it makes you really, really poorly. But as soon as that snake comes up, those feelings you've said, your body goes into an adrenaline rush. Your eyes, the pupils dilate to allow more light coming in. Your heart starts to beat faster to pump more oxygen around your body because your body you need that good blood because any moment now you've got to fight or you've got to flight. You've got to run away or you've got to fight. Our hands start sweating because that's where we're going to grab weapons. People say the colour drain from our face because it's all your blood going to your legs because you need to run away. And it's that and that feeling like needing going to the toilet and your body it sort of suspends digestion. Basically, it's just focus on this thing in front of you, and that's why people say, "Oh, I felt sick." It's because your body's actually stopped everything to deal with it. Now that's fear, and that only lasts for a short time because you couldn't live like that forever. So that's the fear of immediate danger. And that could last seconds. I'd love to know scientifically how long it lasts. But that's the fear. But then, if you do, let's say you didn't die from the snake bite, and a few months later we're going away. Every time you pass a certain bush or a certain rock, is there going to be a snake there? Is that going to be a snake? Are there snakes down there? Do you think the snake's down there? And that's the anxiety because it's the you're waiting for that you're waiting for that to happen again, and you're almost anticipating the fear. So the big distinction for our listeners is fear is the immediate threat of danger that you have to deal with, and anxiety is worrying about things happening. And most of us are absolutely tied up with anxiety. And like you said, James, and I've seen some of your podcasts, and you've done this before, and you're a seasoned professional at it. You're good at it. There's not a problem. But the fear, what happens if I make a mistake? What happens if I do this? What happens? What happens? What happens? What? And it's that fear because you don't want to look silly. You don't want to look. You don't want to let your guests down. Again, what you're putting on here is on the internet forever. So if you make a fool of yourself, you think, hang on, there's people in Brazil that'll know I'm rubbish. You know what I mean, Tom? And it's that anticipation of looking silly, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that because I almost think it comes down to childhood
Yeah,
as a child, and we want to impress, we want to be loved, we want to feel worthy and good enough and to be able to fit in.
yeah,
And so I feel as though making a mistake, whether that could be standing up in the front of front of five other toddlers and saying something which, oh, and then you start laughing.
yeah,
Or maybe another example could be your parents. You want to make sure that your parents are always there, so you're always a good boy. And
yeah.
so as soon as you're a bad boy, as soon as that one occasion, suddenly it all changes. And so I feel as though we still have this fear of what might have happened during our
Absolutely.
childhood inside us now. But our body doesn't know the distinction between then and now.
I've done a lot of work on the inner child. There's some work by a guy called Ernie Larson, and it was about the subliminal messages we get from parents as children that we don't realize we're getting, because they could be talking to your auntie across the room or whatever, and it could be something might happen, and your parents make a judgment because all they want to do, James, is protect you. Now, it could be you've gone to speak on stage at the school play and you started crying because on that particular thing. But then your parents said, "Oh, I James, he's a sensitive little soul. Oh, I James is really shy. Oh, I James doesn't like crowds." But that's not necessarily true. Just on that particular moment, you felt scared. But then for your parents to protect you, think, "I'm never going to put him on stage again." And the thing with Ernie Larson is, what you live with, you learn. What you learn, you practice. What you practice, you become, and what you become has consequences. So you're a little child on stage, and it could be the little boy next to you stood on your toes and you start crying. But your mom and dad think, oh, there's our James. He doesn't like crowds. So you'll hear this, oh, our James, a sensitive little soul. He's always ever so sensitive. He's so sensitive. And he all has a sensitive. And you hear all these messages, you think, I must be. So what you live with, you learn. Right, I think I'm going to learn to be sensitive. What you learn, you practice. You practice at becoming sensitive, and what you practice, you become. You become sensitive, and then what you become has consequences. So in the workplace, oh, be careful what you say to James. You know what he's like. He's a bit sensitive, but be careful. You know what he's like. He'll go off like a bottle of pop, or he's ever so sensitive. And that's not necessarily true. That was something that was given to you, and it could be because somebody stood on your foot, but it could be, oh, James is an angry little so and so. Oh, James is a creative little. But not 9 times out of 10, these labels that are given to us are not always positive. It's, James is a worrier. James is sensitive. James doesn't like strangers. James a fussy eater. And these are all the things you practice. They never say, James is absolutely fantastic at taking chances. Watch James climb that tree, will be fantastic. Oh, James. We never ever have that because parents love us and they want to protect us. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I'd urge you to look at some Ernie Larson. It's all about the inner child, and it's called the family of origin. And I've also done a lot of work with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Some of the traumas we have in childhood still haunt us to this day. You know what I mean? So
But most podcast episodes, when we're having this conversation, the inner child healing comes up again and again and again and again. And so it's just an indication to us, especially men out there.
yeah,
They were very, I feel as though, because 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, you mentioned inner child healing, I would have laughed at you.
of
And I
course you
feel as
would.
though we've got a stigmatism that's inner child work. It's not for us. We don't have to do inner child work, but believe me, we do.
Absolutely. Can you imagine us? I mean, I haven't drank alcohol for 25 years now. We'll talk about that later. But can you imagine us being in the pub 15 years ago and the lads having a bit of banter or whatever? Lads, stop it now because you're starting to offend my inner child. you'd be laughed out the pub, you know what I mean, type of thing. But and going back to the when I did the work on this inner child, my friend of mine, it was a friend of mine, David, took me through it. He says, what'll happen? Just you become the observer in your life. You become like, it's like an out of body experience, and you look at your life. He said, there'll be a subliminal message you had as a child. And I looked and I looked and I thought, I was never told I was sensitive. I was never told this. I thought, what is the message? And it just wouldn't come. And I was trying to shoehorn a message in. Anyway, my mummy, God, she was 94 and she passed away. She passed away 4 years ago. A wee Scottish mammy. She loved me and she absolutely idolized me. But she'd say things like, God was good, son. He didn't give you any talent because you're big-headed enough as it is. Thanks, Mum. You know what I mean? But they keep you grounded and never forget the little nest you come from. But I thought, what was the subliminal message my mum gave me? And I couldn't find it. Then the one day, I'll explain later if you want to. I've been a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been a recovering alcoholic for the last 25 years. And I work a 12-step program and I attend AA meetings. It's an integral part of my life. It's something I really love. Because we all say we went for our drinking and we stayed for our thinking. This was because basically if everybody had a pint and became alcoholics, it's what it does to me inside my head. But anyway, I started this AA meeting on a Wednesday night, and my mum and I was doing all this family of origin stuff, the inner child, looking for a subliminal message. And my mum said to me, "Don't forget, come and see me after the meeting." And I said, "How was it? Was it good?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Did they all praise you?" That's it. Did they all praise you? I remember I was a teacher. We took a load of children away on holiday to France, the year sixes. And when all the parents we brought the children back, and obviously the parents hadn't seen the kids for 5 days, and all they wanted to do was to hug their child. My mum said, "Did all the did all the parents give you a round of applause?" I said, "No, Mum, they weren't bothered about me. All they wanted to see was the children." And that's what it was, praise. And my mum, and the caveat to that show says, self-praise is no praise. And to me, James, self-praise is every praise. You need it. And even to this day now, I'm 62 in August. I'm sitting in my dining room, I'll cut the lawn. If my wife's in the kitchen, I'll tap on the window and I'll point to the lawn. She's like, "Well done, you've done really good." It's like I have to be praised. I'll go into schools, I'll have 300 children bouncing like, one of my poems, and they're all laughing their head off. And after they've gone, I've said to the teacher, "Was that all right?" Because they'll have to say, "Oh yeah, that was really good, David." Because I need that external gratification to enhance my self-worth. I'm working on that. I'm 62 and I've started to realize that looking in the biggest critic and your biggest advocate is the person that's staring back from the mirror. That's the one who's matters most of all. And it's taken me, yeah, 5 decades to realize that what I'm doing is okay. And not everybody will love what I do, but that's okay.
Mm.
And yeah, so it's there will be a subliminal message, but it's if we're going around waiting for that external, verification that for somebody to say you've done a good job. And that's what happens in the workplace sometimes. We'll work really hard, but when our manager comes along and says, "Oh, you've done really well," that means you've done good. Oh, I was a teacher and I said, I put on a thing once, Ofsted endorsed, because Ofsted said, the last two Ofsteds, they said I was an outstanding practitioner. The one before that, they nearly failed me, but we don't talk about that one. But for the last two Ofsteds, I was deemed to be an outstanding practitioner. And my mate said, "You don't need Ofsted to tell you that, Dave. Do you do your best to make sure your children learn best? Do you plan your lessons well? Do you make learning fun?" I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "And that's what it is. You don't need somebody to come and tell you, but a lot of the time we need that external verification. Is that the right word? Verification. People to validations. We need people to validate how good we are, and we don't really, because it's an inside job."
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell me about yourself?
Yeah. I'm born in Scotland, 1963, Ayrshire in Scotland, the county of Rabbie Burns, the famous poet. A lot of people won't. People A lot of people don't know Robbie Burns, but they'll know one of his poems and his songs because they sing it every year. Do you know what it is? Have you heard of Robbie Burns?
No, no, no,
You've never
no,
heard of Robbie Burns?
no, no.
Have you ever heard of the best laid plans of mice and men?
Heard of them. I think it's at school. I think I
Yeah.
read of Mice and Men.
But the best laid plans of mice and men, that was from a poem from Robbie Burns called the Ode to a Mouse. But you'll have heard of Robbie Burns. You cross your arms like that. You're normally drunk with a load of friends and you sing, Should Old Acquaintance.
All right, yeah.
Robbie Burns wrote,
New Year's Eve.
Robbie Burns wrote Old Lang Syne, and he comes from Ayrshire. So I always say the two famous poets from Ayrshire is myself and Robbie Burns. So I was born in Ayrshire, 1963, the youngest of 5 children, 4 big sisters. I've been a prince all my life. My mammy ruined me, my sisters ruined me, and my lovely wife's in the garden now. And she said that your sister and your mother's treat you like a prince for years, and I just took over when you were 32. So anyway, we came down to Rugeley in Staffordshire, 1963, 64. I was 8 months old. My father was a coal miner. A lot of the coal fields were closing in Scotland, so they came down to the Staffordshire coal fields. So I was brought up on a beautiful. It was a tough council estate in Rugeley. Growing up, it was paradise to me because you had loads of mates. You went out your front door, there was always a game of football going on. There was a game of army. There was a game of hide and seek. We'd walk up the canal. It was great. No iPads in those days. It was just you played when it got light and you went in when it was dark. But it was a tough environment. You had to be mentally tough and physically tough. But I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't good at sport. But my superpower was humor. I could make people laugh, and that's what I did. My dad's David Anderson. I was born David Anderson. So to save any confusion, I always went by my middle name. Now, if my middle name is James or Peter or Edward, that's great. My middle name's Tracy. And back in those days, it was predominantly a girl's name. So I was a little fat kid living on a tough council estate. I wasn't good at sport. I couldn't fight. I had 4 big sisters. I was a mommy's boy. I was a wimp, and I had a girl's name. And so I didn't have much going for me. So, and I've always felt this, never ever felt good enough. Went through the Catholic education system of the 1960s and 70s. Didn't really do anything for me. I left school with 2 CSE grade 4, no qualifications. And then my first job was working in a supermarket as a butcher. That was long hours. Then I became a coal miner, went to work at Lee Hall Colliery, but that was cold and dirty and you had to get up in the middle of the night. Back into the butchers. And then I went back to Armitage Shanks, the bathrooms, the famous bathroom manufacturers. And I had to paint the inside lids of cistern lids. I did that for about 4 years. Then I went to work with young people with learning disabilities, with autism and communicational difficulties. I learned to sign. I'm sort of semi-proficient in sign language. And then I went to work with adults with learning disabilities, but this time I'm in my early 30s, and the job was becoming more and more like a teacher. And a friend said to me, do us a favour, Dave, go away for 4 years, get a degree and come and teach in my school. So I did an access course to higher education. I told my wife at the time, I said, I'm giving my job up. She went, that's nice. We've got a mortgage and a child. And what are you going to do? I said, oh. So I used to work, I was a worker in charge at the local youth club. I worked at Morrison's, it was Safeways in those days. I delivered for Wicks, the DIY people. And then I did my access course to higher education. I did a 3-year history degree. And then I did a PGCE in primary education, became a primary school teacher, did that for 15 years, then became a deputy head teacher for the last 5 years. And then I was off work with anxiety and depression, really, because I've always felt like that imposter. I've never felt good enough. And I was off. And while I was off, and I've always written poems. Someone said, why don't you write your poems? So I left 5 years ago. And I said to Paula, I'm now going to leave my job. She went, oh my goodness, what are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to become a writer. She said, you can't spell. And I still can't spell. And I've written 5 books. I've written 5 poetry collections. I've written 2 books for adults. And I've written a book called Fear Tells Lies. And then for the last 5 years, I've gone around, I've visited nearly over 200 schools, delivering either whole school poetry days, or I talk about self-centered fear and anxiety. And now I'm branching into secondary schools, talking about overcoming fear and anxiety, helping the disengaged to become re-engaged, and helping with transitions from year 11 to sixth form, or from year 6 to year 7, or helping with exam stress. And yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So I've had a varied career, a nervous breakdown, battled alcoholism, and I'm 62 and I still don't know what I want to do. But yeah, I class myself as author. I think on my business card it's got author, mentor, well-being champion, and that's what I like to class myself. So a bit of a potted history of David Anderson.
Quite a journey, but I think one thing which stands clear is that how throughout your life you felt like an imposter. And you mentioned at the very end about self-centered fear. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the self-centered fear is that it's not fear of never being good enough, fear of not being loved. And I think I've read every book there is to try and self-development. I've got them all lined up on upstairs in my study. My mate calls it shelf help. He calls them shelf help books because I've got shelves full of them. But all of them, like you said, goes back to that mindfulness. It goes back to gratitude. It goes back to addressing your fears. But it's just that fear of what's going to happen. And what I do, James, I'm getting a lot better now, mate. In fact, I'm brilliant compared to what I used to be. I no longer live in the future. I no longer live in the past. I try my best to drag myself into the present day, and the present day is brilliant. As I sit here today, I'm talking to my mate James on here. The sun's shining. In an hour's time, a couple of hours, we'll be finished this. We'll wrap it up. My wife and I are driving to East Midlands Airport to pick my mate up, Jane, from Spain. We'll come back. I'm going to go meet my mate Big Al for a couple of hours. I'll come back tonight. We'll have a meal. I'm going to go to bed early tonight. I'm up at 5:20 tomorrow morning, driving across to Codsall to an AA meeting at 7 o'clock, 7 till 8. Then we're all going to Costa Coffee till 9, coming back home again at 9:30, jumping in the car at 10, and my son and I are heading for Cardiff because we've got tickets for the first Oasis concert back.
Oh, nice.
And then we're going after that from Cardiff round to Weston-super-Mare with a great friend of mine lives, and my son's girlfriend. We're gonna have the weekend in Weston-super-Mare. Coming back about tea time Sunday, and at 8 o'clock Sunday night I'll be at the AA meeting in Rugeley. That I've got enough money in the bank to do that. I've got a car that can drive me down there. I've got fuel in the tank. I'm going to be with my boys. If I want to buy a t-shirt at the way, I can afford it. If we have a meal, I can afford that. And that's great. But then I start thinking, oh, what happens if I don't get any bookings in 6 months' time? Or can you remember that booking I did 3 months ago? They haven't booked me. I bet they hated me. And I start trying to predict the future or try and repair the past. You can't. But when I keep myself in the here and now, my life's brilliant. And that's what self-centered fear is for me. It's about worrying about that. A friend of mine, Richard, said to me once, the only trouble with impending doom, David, it's always impending. It never ever happens. And you know yourself and some of the listeners on here, I bet you can say 99% of the stuff that you worried about never ever happened. It never saw the light of day. But so it's dragging yourself into the here and now, and just living in because most of us where we are at that present moment in time, we're all quite comfortable.
Yeah. When, say, for example, something you go into a school today, but you're feeling really, really fearful, or you have a lot of anxiety, how do you personally overcome it?
Yeah. Have you seen the film Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Rob Simon, and basically he's a sports promoter, or what do they call them, agent. And whatever happens, all these big stars, they all leave him, and he's got this one guy left. And basically, but the guy keeps saying to me, and it's a great scene. I'm with you. I'm with you. He says, "Show me the money." Shout, "Show me the money!" And he's screaming down the phone, "Show me the money!" I always think with that, show me the evidence. So, oh, how you doing, Jay? Oh, Pep, I'm so worried. I think I'm going to lose my house. Show me the evidence, James. Yeah, no, but no, show me the evidence. Show me the letter from the bank that said your house had been repossessed. No, no, you don't understand. I was supposed to do this. No, show me the evidence, mate. And oh, because I'm going to feel it's MOT, show me the evidence. And half the time, mate, we can't show the evidence. And I say to people, show me, show me the evidence, and they can't. And one thing I say to myself when I'm riddled with fear, and it's hard, mate. It's really hard. I think, show me the evidence. There's no evidence there. Then I'll say to myself, and it's my friend Jane that I'm picking up today from Spain. She's told people in Spain this. She says, "Dave, the best word you ever said to me was, is it happening today? Is it happening today?" Well, Pep, David, I'm really. So a lot of my mates call me Pep. I'm Pep the poet and David Anderson the speaker. So David and Pep will be interchangeably when I talk about myself. And she'll say, "Dave, the best thing you ever said to me was, is it happening today?" Because you might be worried about an interview next week. Is it happening today, James? No, don't worry about it then. And it's that simple,
Yeah.
because that little sentence will drag you to the here and now. Another one, how much of it in your head is real? Or, how you doing, Joe? Well, Pep, I've got this interview next week. I've got this training course next week. And I know that, do you know definitely? Yeah, but I know that, no, you don't. You don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, but they're going to ask me to do this exercise. And you know, you're a firefighter, but they're going to ask me to do this. How do you know, mate? You don't know. And it's that. So is it happening today? How much of it in your head is real? Show me the evidence. And what I do, I almost give my anxiety, and I urge your listeners to do this. I give my anxiety a personality. And I do this with children. You can be called whatever it could be. It could be, I don't know, moaning Mick or scary. So, forget there's any people watch Susan, but it could be scary Susan or I don't know, dreary Deirdre or whatever. But I give my personality, I give my fear a personality, and I call it out. And what it is, it's a coward, because fears only ever attack you when you're alone or at night time or when you're vulnerable. When you're happy, your fears are nowhere to be found. So they look for you when you're vulnerable, then they attack you. But what I do is when I'm on it, I bring them out, and they don't like the light of day. Fears don't. I invite them in. Come here. Come and sit down. No, I want to be in the dark. I want to be inside your head. No, come out your head. Come and sit next to me. And a lot of the time, they don't want to come out because they're cowards, and they're not real because we make them up. So yeah. So if I'm in a school, if I'm attacked with fear, and if you've got any people watching this, is it happening today? How much of it in your head is real? Call it out for what it is. Show me the evidence. And a lot of the time you can't, mate. And you think, hang on, I'm torturing myself here, aren't I? So
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's because I think some of the biggest areas that people struggle with is money
yeah,
and relationships.
yeah,
And people will be either worrying about not making payments or not having enough money for whatever they need, or their relationships is going to pot.
yeah.
But again, it's just asking yourself in that moment, is that truly happening? Because quite often people can almost create their own reality by thinking this stuff. And quite often it happens because they're almost rehearsing it, and they almost push themselves into it.
Yeah. And they believe, and that saying like, "Oh, I've spent all my time clearing the wreckage of the past." Most of us start clearing the wreckage of the future, stuff that hasn't even happened yet, and we're starting to predict it. James, as I sit before you here today, mate, I'm far from, because this fear. I'm a human being. I'm constantly riddled with with financial insecurity. You ask my mates that'll be watching this, they'll laugh. Every year, my biggest fear is losing I love my house, and it's just I love, I just love my house. I love my home. I'm sitting around. I've got a lovely kitchen here. I just love my house, and I live in fear of losing my house. I live in fear of not having money when I'm older. I'm old now, I'm 62. But I've had that fear since I was 16. I've had that fear of money since I was 16, and it's never ever go away. But I have to say, right, I could not go out today, mate, and buy a brand new 4-bedroom house. I could not go out today and buy a brand new convertible Bentley. But I don't think many people could really, but if I, and my idea of being a millionaire is when I go for a meal, I don't have to look for the cheapest thing on the menu. Yeah, when I was a kid, we went out with some mates once, and I was looking down. I was looking the cheapest thing because that's all I could afford at the time. And I always think when I'm older, when I become a big man, as I used to call myself, I'm never going to look at the cheapest thing on the menu. And to me, whenever I go out for a meal, if I fancy a T-bone steak, I'll have one. You know what I mean? Because I can
Mm.
afford it. And I'm blessed enough to. Paul and I went shopping yesterday. Have we got enough money to do the shopping this week? Yes. Have you got enough money to put in your car to take you down to Cardiff? Yes. Can you tap me? Insurance is coming up soon. Can you do insurance? Yes. And it is. Can you afford a Daimler, a Bentley? No, because I can't. Can you buy a second home abroad at the moment? No. But can you afford to go on holiday next year? Yeah, if I save up. If I save up 50, 60 quid a week and put it to one side and don't use it, yeah, I probably could. But it's and I know I'm blessed. I know some people for what slow self-worth, low income, not having the right qualifications. Some people have to work really hard on minimum wage. I'm blessed enough to when I go out to schools, I can earn a bit more than the minimum wage. But at the moment, I go into primary schools. But at the moment, with government spending cutbacks, my work in primary schools really dried up at the moment, and I've gone to this. I've started to panic. But what I've done is look forward. I'm starting doing 1 day a week supply teaching in a secondary school because I want to work with older children because I want to develop some keynotes to do with self-centered fear and anxiety. And I thought, so before it panics, I've started and they've signed me up. I'm doing 1 day a week for the next year. So yeah. So self-centered fear, sorry, financial insecurity is always on me. But I know it's not real. I've got enough money for
Mm.
today. So,
Well, the key thing I got from that was that you find ways.
yeah.
So say for example, you were a bit short to buy the Bentley.
Yeah.
If that's what you really, really wanted, you
Yeah.
would find ways to get it.
Yeah. And I'm trying my best. I'm getting so much better. But years ago, and people probably do this, when you feel bad, and people say, "Oh, I'm doing a bit of retail therapy today," and because you go out, but you buy. But I always think, how long does that? Not that little dopamine rush. When you go out and buy something new, buy a new book. I don't know about you, Matt. I've got a study full of books that I haven't read yet. But I buy them because it makes me feel better. But I read something the other day. It was a guy, it was a guy on Instagram. The Chinese have got a word, or the Japanese, for when you've got piles of books, whatever the word is, basically the little treasures. They're little pieces of treasure that you're going to learn from very soon. And they don't see it as tat or rubbish. They see it as investing in your future. So I forget what the word. It was something like, it wasn't Sudoku, like the puzzle Sudoku.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
it was something sounded like that. It was like Sudoku or something, but it means like little treasures waiting to be read. So
Yeah.
my study's full of Sudoku or whatever it's called. But I'll have to try and get the video.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'd so my shelves were stacked full of books. So I did sell some
Yeah.
that I read and probably didn't plan to read. With regards to yourself, what are some of the signs that you have fear or anxiety for yourself?
Um, but the physical things, like you say, is the sweating, is the dry mouth, the I always feel it's like a burning sensation that comes up. You're thinking, hang on, I'm not feeling good. But then I start looking around and think, hang on, where am I? Am I here sitting at my dining room table talking to James, or am I 6 months ahead? You know, sitting in front of me accountant telling me I've got no money because that's where I like to spend a lot of the time. Or 3 months ago when I should have said yes to that deal that was coming, but I didn't because it wasn't right at the time. But now I wish I had. But so what I tend to do is when I'm the physical things is. is when I'm not in the present. A friend of mine, Anne, said to me once, and I didn't realize it. And she says, when you're really stressed, Pep, she called me Pep, when you're stressed, your brain's going that fast, you miss out words and you don't finish off sentences. And I'm terrible for doing that. And so I would say to you, but by the way, I'm going to talk to you now and cut off the end of the sentences just in case your listeners think that the sound's cut off. But I'll say to you, oh James, I was telling you the other day about the that when you were on about the going to Stafford, and yeah, you're just fantastic in that. And then you're what? I've actually said, can you remember you said the other day in Stafford, they've got that brand new shopping centre. I went around there, it was absolutely fantastic. I went to M&S and I went, that's what I've said inside me. That's what I've said inside my head. But what actually comes out was, I went to that shopping centre, the Stafford and the cars and that. It was brilliant, man. But the people look at me going, I say, and I'll say, I haven't finished my sentence. No. So that's one sign that when I don't finish it, but I didn't realize it was a friend of mine said to me, when you're stressed, you don't finish your sentences. So I don't finish my sentences. I start to feel that palpitations. I go to bed at night and my head's rumination. I'm starting to play things, scenarios inside my head. That's always a good telltale sign. Yeah, and I'm just not in the present. And then I think to myself, oh, hang on, this is going to get out of hand again now. So, and I was in a very dark place 8 years ago, and I vowed I will never ever go back there, never. And and what I do is I put lots of boundaries in place because I never ever want to go back to that dark place, and I won't. I refuse to go back there because yeah, just those sort of things like not being in the present moment time, not finishing my sentences off, talking. I do talk fast anyway, but that nervous energy when I'm really talking, they're all telltale signs that I'm starting to get a little bit stressed.
Okay. So when you notice this happening in the present moment, and you're getting a little bit fearful or anxious because of something that's coming up, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you partake in?
Absolutely. For example, 'cause the key to me, and I probably sound like a broken record here, but it's about being in the present. In the present, and I have to drag myself into the present. What time are we on now? It's now 11 minutes. Look at that. My friend always tells me about little signs.
11. Boom. Well done. Yeah.
My friend Lorraine, I just said to you, I'm going down to Western-super-Mare. My friend Lorraine is beautiful, and she always tells me about 4 ones together. That's a sign to do with manifestation and the universe. So I do a lot of that. Yeah, that's really. And she rang me the other week. I was meeting a friend. She rang me 11 minutes past 11, and but I think I'd already texted her, and I texted her at 11 minutes past 11. That's really spooky, that is. And we've got it on camera as well, which is good.
It was on camera.
Yeah. So what I do, and I do a lot of work. The universe is a big. I do lots of manifestation, and lots of spiritual signposts that are out there. But going back to if I'm anxious, I'm sitting in a room. Could be doctor's surgery. It could be I'm sitting there. The airport. It's when you've got lots of time to. In my brain, when I go to bed at night, my friend David always says to him when he gets up in the morning or he wakes up in the middle of the night, he says, I'm glad you're awake, old lad. We've got some real stuff we need to worry about here. And it is that, you wake in the middle of the night, James, I'm glad you're awake. How long have you got left on your passport? I bet it's going to run out soon, isn't it? I don't know. James, what would happen if your house got flooded? Oh, shut up, just let me sleep. James, do you remember you were on holiday when you were 10? You met that lad from Liverpool. What was his sister called? Just let me alone. And it is those sort of questions that I read a thing once. It said most nights I wake up and there's 4 voices in my head that constantly in my head. Three of them are arguing. The other one's trying to work out if penguins have knees, and that's my head. So when I get like that, I think right. First of all, breathing is the things you have to do in the here and now. I breathe. And there's different, as you know, if you just Google breathing techniques, there's hundreds of them. I call it the 4x4x4. So I breathe in and I count 4, and then I hold it, and then I breathe out, count back in, and and just so even the breathing, and I count it, and that counting because all you can think about is your breath and your counting. It's impossible to think about your breath and your counting and your unpaid tax bill. You can't do it. So I do that. I always, we used to call it in school, during lockdown, the children, we had to do like lessons online, and it was the very early stages before everybody got into, getting lessons online. It was a Zoom session, and for a little activity, we used to have first to find. I said, right, first to find. I want you to go around, and you've got to come back with a wooden spoon with a sponge attached to it with a elastic band. Of course, they'd run off, and they'd come back with it. Well, first to find something in your wardrobe that's yellow, and of course they'd come back. So we had this first to find, and to these days, these kids are 16 now, and they'll say, Mr. Aiken, remember we used to play first to find. But what I do, I play first to find when I'm in a room, when I'm worrying about the future, or think, right, how many things are in this room now? 6 things that are perfectly circled. And I'm thinking, right, the top of my cup, the top of this little thing here, the bottom of the tap, these lights above me, my down lighters there, and the knobs on the cooker. 3 things in this room that rhyme with hair, chair. But what I'm doing, I'm looking at 3 things in this room that are blue. Your shirt, top of that there, my microphone, and the utensil pot. So what I do is because what that does is ground you in the moment. So I try a bit of breathing, and then and it can be done in a doctor's waiting room. It can be done in an airport. It can be done, even in bed, just like, name 3 of your friends. The name begins with S. Got my mate Stevie, got mate Sarah, and Sophia, who's one of the teachers I used to work. So, and what it does, it rewires your brain, because you've got to think of that. And when they're quite mundane, and they're not really that important. No, the people are important, but those little activities are not important. But what you're doing, you're using your brain power to do that, rather than trying to work out your passport's in date in the middle of the night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so let's just clarify. You mentioned about breathing, and obviously, as we all know, there's mountains of material out there. And then basically bring yourself into the present moment by being aware of your present surroundings.
Yeah. And absolutely. And what I've done recently, a friend of mine, he sent me an AI generated picture. This was I've got to say now, it was a AI generated picture. I keep saying that because people say, and this isn't me, but now you can see that. He sent me that. It was a big guy eating fish and chips. Since that, I've actually lost 2.5 stone, because I've got diabetes, I've got high blood pressure. But I was like I said, I put down alcohol 25 years ago and picked up sugar, and sugar addiction is another big one for me. But what I did, I started walking. I do my 10,000 steps a day. But I live in Rugeley. We've got Cannock Chase here. We've got the canal system. We've got the National Arboretum. The memorial. The National Army Arboretum.
Yeah.
Literally, I walked around Lichfield yesterday. It's beautiful. Beacon Park, the cathedral. But these are all things that I didn't notice before, James. But we're surrounded by beauty. And wherever you live, even if you live in the middle of a city, go around. And I always urge people to look up. And sometimes you'll see the top of buildings and the ornate stonework, or sometimes you'll see little name places. I wonder why that was called there. Like Brewery Street. You think, there must have been a brewery years ago, or whatever. So go around and look at being wherever you are, be aware of what's around you. But sometimes you have to force yourself to do that.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
name things that are red, name things that are around.
Well, it's like being on the motorway. So many people get so caught up in perhaps there's a big queue. But if you start to bring yourself back into present moment and focus on what's around you, you can quite often see a lot of beauty. You mentioned, obviously, this is the second recording we've done because we attempted on Riverside. You mentioned the 5 Fs. Can you go through the 5 Fs with us, please?
Yeah, they were a bit naughty actually, because I don't know if you remember. I always talk about the 5 Fs: the fight, fright, flee, freeze, flock, and reproduction, which was quite naughty actually. And I think what it is was there's the fight or flight. So when you've got when you've got a situation that you're confronted the fear, you can either run away or you can deal with it. And sometimes you've only got a split decision to make that. You get these people that win, like the Pride of Britain. They've run into a building and pulled people out when it's on fire. They've dived into a raging river and pulled a child out. And when you interview them after, I can just about swim a length of the pool. I don't know what come over me. And it's just that sometimes you have that, and being a firefighter, that it's heroic, absolutely heroic. So it's that fight or flight. So first of all, we have to decide if we're going to fight or we're going to flight. I tend to go for flight a lot of the time, being the coward that I am. And then there's freeze, and because sometimes with an animal, they could be eating something, and then a big lion comes along, and they just freeze. But I think what I mean as well, in society, freeze, just stop, taking the situation, like if you're worrying about something, right, stop it, right, and ask the question, right, because you can feel yourself spiraling, right, how much of this is real, what evidence is it happening today, you know am I in immediate danger now? No. So and then the flock, I always think about the flocking, was being with it. I call it my CPU. I have a thing called a close protection unit. And when you get like superstars or royalty, and I mean, it's lovely now that I was watching a podcast the other day, and the royal family, they're on social media now, and Prince William and Kate, and it's lovely. But and they go out, they shake hands with the crowd, and it's lovely. But they've got 2 or 3 big bodyguards around them, and if anybody comes forward, they'll protect them. And I have a CPU. I have a close protection unit, and they all know who they are. There's my wife, who's the head of my CPU, my 2 boys, Leo and Ryan. There's my mate Big Al. There's my former head teacher I used to work with, Carl Babartsi. My mate Lee Pace, who co-wrote the book with me. There's Big Al, and there's my sponsor from AA, Alex, and then my sisters, Anne-Marie and Helen. They're my immediate close protection unit. Then I've got layers around them. So if you ever try to attack me, you've got to get past them. And Big Al's 6'7", so he wouldn't be messing about with him. So yeah. And when I say with my CPU, sometimes we have. I think it was Steve Harvey, that the American talk show host. He said there's nothing kills a big dream better than small-minded people going around, and if I've got this idea, I'm going to ask everybody, and everybody gets their opinion. In the end, you talk yourself out of it. If I have an idea, I go to my CPU first of all. So my flock, my tribe, you know what I mean? So yeah, so there's fight, flight, freeze, flock, and I forget the fifth one, but whatever it is, but it's about reproduction. But so yeah. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah. The CPU sounds pretty much like, if you're in a little bit of trouble, say for
Yeah,
example, you do have a little bit of money issues.
yeah.
You've got your CPU to assist.
Example, like, I've got friends, and I've got great friends. I've got businesses, I've got contacts. And the other week, I've been a bit worried lately, because obviously this time last year, that I was fully booked for October is National Poetry Week. Next year in March is World Book Week, and I was absolutely blocked. And I was booked out. And then I've still got a lot of gigs coming in, but I was solid. It was great. But at the moment, I'm classed as an enrichment activity for schools. I'm the icing on
Yeah.
the top of the cake. And it's like yourself. This is one of the first things that cut back. It shouldn't be cut back, because poetry helps children to express themselves. It helps them to write. It's great for the self-confidence. It's great for the self-worth. It's a wonderful vehicle for all-round thing. And I would say that being a poet, but it is. But that's cut back. So my financial insecurities, I've been riddled with it lately. And you can go around and say to your mate, "Oh, can you give us 100 quid?" But that's great, but you've got to pay that back. I spoke to my mate Carl, who was the head teacher where I used to work, and I said, do you think I'd be all right teaching in secondary school? He says, yeah, I think you'd be great, because he knows me well and he's seen me teaching, and he's been my mate for 10 years. I've got my mate Lee, who's works in a secondary school, middle school. He says, no, Dave, you'd be absolutely fantastic. They're the ones I seek the advice from. I could ask one of my mates who loves me, who's a construction worker, for example, who's never ever seen me in class. He could say, oh, Pep, I think you're great, but he's never actually seen me teach. And then I think Carl then put me in touch with a local secondary school. I went to meet the head teacher, and I've now got, 1 day a week. So that's like, that's a certain amount of money coming every month for the next year. Because that was my because I went, and what I was saying about the CPU is, my son's a bodybuilder, so I'm trying to lose weight at the moment. So I ask him questions about nutrition, and my other son's, he's a plumber and a builder and really talented guy. So I go around affairs of the heart. I go and speak to my wife, because what I was terrible at in the past, James, was asking every Tom, Dick, and Harry's opinion. My wife would still argue I'm still the same, but if I ever wanted to buy a car, I would ask everybody's opinion. What do you think about Volkswagens and best cars in the world? Oh, my mate had one, they're terrible. Oh, what? And I'd get all this this misinformation, and I was just confused. So my CPU, they're there to protect me. They're there to advise me, and I have great fun with them as well.
Yeah. One thing I'm doing at the moment is asking my close friends, where am I not fully stepping out? Or where do they see me perhaps not being able to fully embrace my true self? Them kind of questions. Because again, we can ask ourselves these questions, but quite often we might have a blind spot. They can see our blind spots.
Absolutely.
What I want to cover now is, obviously, you talk about poetry and humor, both things to do with playfulness.
Yeah.
And I think playfulness is so important, especially in children's lives, but also I think playfulness is very important in adults' lives. And so I feel sometimes we can get overcome by all this fear. But I think playfulness is a good way to really allow ourselves to step into this fear, because playfulness, it gives us it's really, really humorous or soft way of dealing with fear. To say, for example, you might be fearful that down the road you might see somebody you know.
Yeah.
You could have a bit of fun actually, walking down the road and get dressed up in different outfits, or you could go down and just be somebody, be somebody different.
Yeah.
We've got great things to do. The question is, how can someone be playful in the moment instead of fearful?
Yeah, it's just can you remember as children? I mean, stop being silly. Stop being so silly. I urge people, stop being silly. Stop being really silly. I am a really, really, really silly person, and I love the word silly. And don't get me wrong, mate. If I'm talking with the CEO of a company and he wants me to come in, or she wants me to come in and do, a session of workshops for mental health and well-being. Obviously, I'm not going to go in with a joke nose on and crack jokes, because that's not what they're after. But I know that we always say in AA, for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, that you go into a room and people always think when they first go to an AA room, it's going to be full of broken people, and people think they'll be there with like raincoats on with a piece of string and drinking out of a bottle. You go into an AA room, there's people laughing and joking and winding each other up and banter, and it's brilliant, because we always say we laugh at things that which we used to cry about in the past. And my mates will say, like, and the humor's it's gallows humor sometimes, you know what I mean? But and again, you'll know that with firefighters, you'll know that with nurses, you know that with police officers. Some of the things that you've seen is quite horrific in your line of work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you don't trivialize it and joke about it, but you have to add a bit of fun to that to make, And one of my greatest inspirations is working with children. just really, really, and just really silly. The laughter of children. I think I know. I want to find a quote, and I'm sure it was something like Socrates or Plato or something. He always said, "When do you know?" He used to ask him once, when you go past the classroom, how do you know there's great learning going on?" He said, "Because I hear laughter." And that's what it is. It's about this laughter. I've got a friend, a guy that's helping us with the putting the book together. A guy called Andy Cope, and he's wrote a book called The Art of Being Brilliant. You ever heard of him? Great,
I've
and
heard of Andy Cope, I think, yes.
Dr. Andy Cope. He went to Loughborough University, and he did a PhD in happiness, and he's actually officially he is the doctor of happiness. And he talks about the two percenters, the people in life, the ones that really achieve true happiness. There's only 2% of the population, and I try every day to be a 2%er. I try and see the good of everything, try and see the happy in everything, and it's just about not taking life that serious. I mean, if you want serious, flick on the news and look at the politicians and look at what's happening around the world. Um, I spend most of my time on YouTube watching Family Guy, Kevin Bridges, remakes. Remember Porridge and Only
Yeah,
Fools
yeah,
and
yeah.
Horses, Only Fools and Horses, and Morecambe and Wise. The classics. Just watch things that are really funny. And that I need that tickle, that little funny bone tickled on a constantly. And I do. I tend to find the funny in most things. And I am a self-confessed, very, very silly person. I see things that, like we'll talk about later. I was down in Newquay in Cornwall, 1981, so I was 18. So what was that? 44 years ago? Yeah, 44. I'm really old now. And my mate Keith, and he said, we were down in Newquay. He says, we're walking into town. He says, "Have you seen the size of the sparrows down here in Newquay in Cornwall?" I said, "Why?" He said, "They come to Rugeley. Our sparrows that batter them." I thought, why would sparrows be fighting? But I can imagine like a Cornish sparrow. And I'll have a go at you, mate. But then I thought, if sparrows, I wonder if they chirp in different accents. But then I thought, what about worms and what about earwigs? And I thought, I wonder if insects have different accents. And that's where the ideas in my poem come from. Like, for me, all spiders are Geordie. Look at me, I'm a spider man. I'm spinning the web like. And tadpoles are Scousers. I'm Terry the tadpole. I live in a bog. Worms are Scottish. I'm Willie the worm, and I like worm because there's lots of Scottish roll their R's. I'm Willie the worm. I roll in a reggle. These come from Birmingham because they're really busy, but they talk really like that. All right, I'm a bee from Birmingham, and I just am a bit busy. But that's my life, and I look at things, and Billy Connolly says, "I'm not funny. I just make the ordinary extraordinary," and I do. I see things that are really funny, and I love like remember Victoria Wood.
No, no,
You
no,
know
no.
Victoria Wood. I'm older than you. She's Julie Walters, Victoria Wood. She's one of the greatest comedians ever. She wrote, but she was on about. She just makes things really, really, really funny. Everyday things, just put a certain twist on them, and yeah. I try my best to see the humor in everything. And with my poems, I give everything a character, a personality. Like I said about my fear, I give it a personality. I give it a person, and it's like when you go out with your mates, you go in the pub, and I can imagine most of your friends are they quite positive people.
Some of them, not all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. We'll talk later on in the second half about drains and radiators, but you normally, if you've got a choice of a night out, you normally surround yourself with positive people, you know. And I always, if you've got this drain in your life, oh James, I'm having a terrible time. I don't have any, and my fear's like that. Oh, I'm so scared. Oh, it's terrible. And he's got this moaning voice, and oh, I think we're going to die soon. I think the car's going to fail its MOT. I think you're going to have no money. Or I think the house is going to flood. I think your passport's going to. I think you're going to get lost on holiday. And that's what it says all the time. But I have to just see it as like a moaning auntie or a mo. And I
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
not to spend time with them. Yeah, I know that. I'll be back in a minute. I hear what you're saying. I'll be back in a minute. I'm just going to go and talk to James. Yeah, and when I come back, they'll still, yeah, and I think I'm gonna, you're gonna burn yourself when you make a cup of tea, and it'll just keep, she'll just carry on, and he'll carry on forever. So what I tend to do is I see life very differently. My wife laughs. Sometimes I'll say something like, or whatever. I said the one day, I said, do you think daffodils are sad? And she went, where's this idea come from? Or I'll we'll go along and I'll see something in cloud. I can see faces in clouds, and
Yeah.
I think, do you think clouds are sad, Paul? I said, I don't know, David. And I just, do you think waves are happy? And but I give everything, I give everything a personality. But I choose, and I choose to see the world. You know, and I've got a friend Rowena. I send her all these little. I'm one of these pain in the bums. You know, your mate that sends you meme after meme. I'm one of them, sadly. But yesterday there was two. There was a meme. It was on Instagram. Two little girls. They're probably 3 or 4, and they're outside. It's the middle. It looks like it's summertime. They've got rainbacks on, but they've got a big bowl full of water. One's mixing the bowl, and the other one's got a teapot, and they're just in a kitchen, but they're just making water and mud. And it's the middle of summer. The one's singing jingle bells at the top of her voice, jingle bells, jingle bells. But I thought, how many times have you sang jingle bells in the middle of the summer? You know what I mean? Or when was the last time you made it? I'm asking you, when was the last time you made a mud pie?
Or a while ago,
Put stones in it to decorate it and give it to your mom and say, I made a mud pie for you. And most people
many
say,
many years ago.
I haven't done it for 50 years. But remember the day you made that mud pie? You got the best mud you could. You mixed it all up. You put it in, you patted it so it was a nice shape. You put little stones around it. You put little twigs to make it look great. And you gave it to your mom. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
I did that for my mum once. She said, Dave, you're 24, get a job. So I
yeah.
had to.
Oh,
Again, see that? That's just, I try my best to make people laugh because you laughed and that made me feel good. So
yeah, that's just very true. Wasn't
other
there a
people look at it.
guy? Wasn't there? There's a guy. I can't think of his name, but he was basically he. I think it was in the 70s, and he was diagnosed with an illness
Yeah,
that by the doctors, and they
yeah,
said that it couldn't be cured. So he
yeah,
thought to himself, he could be cured. So he went and he hired. He went. I think he went. I think he initially started in hospital
yeah,
watching funny comedies, as
yeah,
you mentioned. Some of them you mentioned, and I think the hospital eventually said you can't do that, and he went into a hotel. And I'm
yeah,
sure he went back to his doctors and they looked at him and the illness that he
yeah,
had gone.
yeah. That was it was the book called The Secret. I think it's have you ever read the book called The Secret?
I know of The Secret, yes.
Yeah, Rona, we'll get the link. I think it's Rona Byrne or Rona, but in there was a guy who was ill, and basically just he chose to watch, um, videos. I think back in the 70s it was videotapes he was watching. But nowadays I spend most of my time on YouTube just watching things. If you look at my YouTube, it's like these guys, these restoration. You'll get like an old battered toy, like a tin toy from the 1930s, but they'll get it and or it'll be somebody making a shelter in the woods. Yeah, but again, when was the last time you made a den with your mates?
Probably a while ago, but
Can
I'm
you
sure
remember?
there's occasions when we have done it in the past. So I'm
Can
very
you remember?
outdoorsy.
Can you remember the last time when you were a kid and you made a den with your mates and it was the best den ever and you'd be really creative. You'd get like wooden crates and you'd or put a window here and all it was just a load of twigs and a load of grass in a local field, but it was your den and okay. And you got a box and you pretended that was the cooker and you sat in there and you were inside a pub. But we lose all that as children. Well, when, when was the last time you put the sprinkler on in your garden just with your pants on and running back and forward in the sprinkler? If we did that now, we'd be arrested. But children, and it's just the innocence of children, when they're just running around carefree. And for some reason, we stopped doing that.
Yeah,
We
yeah, yeah,
stopped
yeah, yeah.
that inner child, that little silly boy and girl within us. We lose it because we have to conform. And again, mate. if you're trying to do a presentation, you're getting paid, but you don't turn up in your pants and run through sprinklers because that's. And I'm not urging that, as a a 60-year-old man, you can't do that because you will be arrested. But what I'm saying is that inner child, the things that we did as children, we'd spend hours just spinning around with your arms out, just spinning around until you fell over. Or you'd be in a paddling pool and you'd be shivering. Your mum said, "Come out, Mike, James, get out. Your lips are blue." When was the last time you played in a paddling pool till your lips were blue and you couldn't? That's what we did as children, and it's just.
Mm.
But we lose all that as adults. But there's a part of me hasn't lost that. There's a part of me, and I think because I've got great niece and nephews now, I'm the greatest builder, the den builder. I say she would make a mud pie for your mum, and people say, "Oh, Pep, you're brilliant keeping the kids entertained." I said, "No, it's all about me. I want to make a mud pie, but if I've got a 5-year-old with me, it makes me look good. But it's me that wants to make them." When was the last time you built something out of Lego?
It's probably the last year.
Oh, that's good. That's good then. You know what I mean? But it's just
I've got nieces and nephews,
right.
young. So yeah.
And I'm blessed enough on a daily basis to go into schools to be really, really silly. And my poems are really silly. And it's because, and a lot of my poems, they do contain bum, poo, fart, you know,
Oh
pants.
yeah, kids. Willie is a big
That,
one for
that, the only,
young boys.
no,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got two boys. I've got two boys, but I've always said that you can't mention Willie or boobies because if you do, you have to go to teacher jail. That's where all the naughty teachers live. But you get away with bum, pants, bra, knickers, poo, wee, and fart. They're the really naughty ones.
yeah,
The secret is my poems. I don't actually say them because I've got one called the Scarecrow Rap, and it's outstanding in my field. That's what I'm told. No need for money, no need for gold. I got straw for hands, no fingers or a thumb. I got a wooden pole right up my, and if kids all shout bum, but no, up my back. Why would you ruin my poem? But I play the mantle of fool, and they love it. The pirate was scared of the sea. We scrub the decks and we play the part. Life's so busy, there's no time to fart. No time to rest. And I play this like mantle. You're ruining my poems now. But if you look on my website, you'll see children crying that because for a
yeah,
9-year-old,
yeah.
that's comedy gold. But again, sometimes I've been to 200 schools and they've loved it. But I know certain schools they have to be a bit careful. But you're on about the Willie word. If you look, I think and I love his work, David Walliams. I think it's chapter 13, page 133, and it's Boy with a Dress. And in there's a little lad, I think he's called Rory Malone or something. But whatever happens, he talks about he got his willy stuck in a test tube, which I find that hilarious. But that's on the shelves of schools all over Britain, which is funny. But sometimes some schools I go into and they'll say, "Oh, you do mention bum and pants a little bit." And some of them, there was one school down in London. I didn't actually get booked because they were scared I was going to mention bum and pants. But I said, "Have you got the boy with the dress in you?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "And it's a fantastic book, and it's really funny, and I'm not offended by it." But yeah, chapter 30, I think it's page 133. You can look it up. Rory
Yeah.
Malone with his Willie in a test tube, which I find that hilarious. But um, yeah, you got to be so careful. So I don't go anywhere near that. But it's just really wholesome. It's fun. It's just yeah. It's what kids in the playground. It's what they talk about. When the teachers are not there, they're all telling
Yeah.
jokes and fart jokes and poo jokes and snot jokes, and that's what they
Yeah,
laugh
yeah.
about. So 'cause that's the inner child within me. So that's where, and I get paid for doing it, which is even better.
It's a perfect job. I think humor and laughter and all that kind of stuff. It's so important for us because as you said, it just wakens up the inner child. But for somebody who's perhaps in a cycle of fear,
Yeah.
how can they give themselves permission to rewrite the story that they're going through?
Yeah, I mean, you can start anytime, but again, like we said, and I was there. If you'd have said to David Anderson 8 years ago when I was off work, it'd be hang on, 8 years ago, 2017, November 2017, which is 8 years ago. If you'd have said to me 8 years ago, I was there and just I said to my boss, I was at work and I was struggling. He said, "How you doing, Dave?" I says, "Carl, I've got to be honest with you. I think I'm a puncture or a speeding ticket away from a nervous breakdown. I have the slightest little thing." Now, back in that, it was the darkest place I was ever been. I didn't see any hope for the future. I really was. I've learned now that suicide ideation. I didn't contemplate suicide, but I said we were talking one night, Paul and I said, somebody had passed away or whatever it was, and I said, if anything happens to if anything ever happens to me, don't worry, Paul. I said, if I went to bed in one night and I didn't wake up, don't be sad because I'm done now. She said, that's a terrible thing to say. I said, no, I don't want to die, but I'm done now. I can't live with this head any longer. That's when I was what 50, what was that? I was 54 and 56 I was then. Um, and now I want to live till I'm 120 now. I've got that many things I need to do. I want to learn new instruments. I want to visit places. I've still got careers that I want to develop. I want to learn languages. I've got that much I need to do, so I can't be dying just yet. So, so, so when you're in that really dark place, first of all, and it's like getting the boat. I always think it's like drowning. You're in you're just drowning in this sea of negativity. What I did, and I'm not urging first of all, ask for help. That's the first thing. If you've got a listener out there who is absolutely in the middle of self-centered fear and anxiety, imagine yourself, you're in the sea drowning. First of all, ask for help. First of all, tread water. And know you're going to get saved. You can swim, and this isn't going to last forever. It's only going to be a short time. Somebody is coming to help you, and somebody will always come to help you. So first of all, do things. So be honest with people, be open with people, and wave your arm. That means shooting off a flare, or doing something. Get noticed, and somebody will come along, and they might just give you a life jacket. You're still in the water, but you know you're not going to drown now, and that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And for me, that was me when I went to the doctor because I had a chemical imbalance. I had tablets from it. That was my particular journey. I'm not saying that everybody had, and I was absolutely antidepressants. My mate Carl said to me because I eventually went off work in the October, but by the March I was really sad in March. And Carl said, "Why don't you go to the doctor?" So, no, I don't want tablets. No, I'm all right. I'm all right. I said, "Tell what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop." Isn't that, isn't that, I've just said that to you, right, Carl, and my phone's just pinged and his name's come up on the screen there. He's one of my CPU. I've just mentioned Carl, and it went ping, it's a message. Again, that's a higher power. That's the universe. That's a signal again. So Carl, I said to Carl, I'm going to start walking, Carl. I'm going to start walking, and if I'm still bad in August, I'll go to the doctors. And he also said to me, "Can you remember that time you were going to walk yourself out of depression, David?" And I laugh about it now because you can't walk yourself out of depression, but well, you can do more exercise. So first of all, be honest and open. Go to people around you and say to people, "I'm struggling." Tell your loved ones, "I'm really struggling here." Go and see a doctor, and you might have to have antidepressants. But what that to me, that was the life jacket. I knew that I wasn't going to drown, and that just gave me a bit of so I could think there. Whereas before, I was just thinking of how I'm going to live. I now know that I'm not going to die, but hang on, it's cold in this water and I'm soaking. I need to get out of the water, so I need to get into the boat. So somebody's going to come and get me into the boat. So in the boat, that could be being open and honest with your friends, going to a help group, starting write poetry, journaling, doing mindfulness, and then eventually you're going to try and help other people get in the boat with you, which is great. But eventually, once the boat's full, they're going to drop you off on the beach. But my mate David said to me once, "God didn't save us from drowning just to have us die on the beach." So when you get to the beach, then you think, right, there's people out there still saving lives. I've done my bit. I'm going to head into the town now, and I'm going to start living my life. I'm going to get these wet clothes off. I'm going to get some dry clothes off. And what I might do, I might do some fundraising in the town to fund the people that are saving in the boats. And that's me. That's like, supporting charities like Mind and different things. So the first thing I do is I was genuinely, so if you're struggling, if you're drowning, ask for help. Yeah. Um, be honest with the people around you, visit the doctors, speak to other people that you know that have what's their experience. If need be, medication, because sometimes it's a hormone, it's a chemical imbalance inside your head, and sometimes
Mm.
tablets are on there. Start journaling, practice mindfulness, get out in the open, walk more. Um, and then be honest and put back. The big thing on in the moment, James, is boundaries. I put boundaries in place, and even I'm not saying you give up your job, but sometimes you might be doing a job that's killing you. And if you have a heart attack or you die, you're no good to your family anyway. So sometimes I was in a job, I was a deputy head teacher, I was earning a good wage, I had a pension, and I had a great job, and I kind of carried on. I think I would have been dead if I'd have carried on because it was just for me, it was just so stressful. And I left to do that, to do the poet, and I've earned as much as I did as a deputy head teacher for working half the time and doing what I love. But at the moment, that's at the moment it will get better. It's gone a bit quiet at the moment. So what I've done now is I'm going to focus on secondary schools, talking to teenagers about self-centered fear and anxiety. I'm going to start working at a senior school. So I've just taken my direct. I've got another arm to my business. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and planning, but the only thing is be honest and talk to people and ask for help, and then identify your CPU. Look at the people in your life. Who are the ones that in if you were stuck at Manchester Airport in the middle of the night, who would you ring for a lift? Who would be the ones that'll say, "I'll be there I'll be there in an hour, mate." There's
Yeah,
two
yeah,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
James, I've got work in the morning. I can't come now, James. They're not your CPU. And it were the ones that, if you were poorly, and there'll only be probably about five or six in your life. And before we go, can I mention drains and radiators to you?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right. The drains and radiator, and this is helps when because sometimes when you're drowning, I didn't realise it was drains that got me there. In my opinion, the whole of the world split into two categories. You're either a drain or you're a radiator. Now the drains, they drain the lifeblood out of you, they drain the positivity out of you, they drain every ounce of joviality out of your body, and they leave you, they suck you clean like vampires. Andy Coke calls them mood hoovers. My friend Mike calls them time bandits. They steal you, and you can't get rid of them. And the reason you can't get rid of them, James, because people say, just get rid of them, cut them out of your life. You can't, because sometimes you might be married to one. I'm not, but you could be married to one. They could have given birth to you. They could have given birth to your partner. You could have given birth to them. You might work alongside with them. One of them might be your boss. You might be the boss to one of them. One of them might be your siblings. So they're all around. And you know who they are, James, because you say to them, like, my mother always used to say that the wind's always in the face. You know, let me just have a quick drink. And sorry, Mum, just have a quick drink.
Right.
And you know who they are, James, because I'll say like, "How you doing?" "Oh, James, I've had a terrible day today." "Oh, James, oh, this weather, oh, it's too hot today." "Oh, James, well, that car, it's a bit fast. I wouldn't want to go that fast. I'm going on her holiday next. Oh, I wouldn't go there. I've heard." The drains, but the opposite to drains are radiators, and they radiate kindness and love and prosperity, and they're brilliant people to be around. And what I did in the past, I went around trying to fix all the drains because I am a radiator. My mate Alicia said to me once, "Dave, you're a central heating system," but I am definitely a self-confessed radiator. I can be a drain sometimes, but I'm aware of it. But because I'm a human being, but I choose to be a radiator. And I went round a few years ago trying to fix all the drains, and in the end, I fell in one and I couldn't get out. And the secret is, right, and this is really sad. They don't. I don't want them to be drains. I want them to be radiators. But they're quite happy being drains because that's
Yeah.
where all the self-esteem comes from. That's where all their interactions come from. That's all this everything. The self-worth is wrapped up in people feeling sorry for them, and they love being. They don't realise it, but they love being drains. So all I do is I limit my time with them, and that could be a family member or whatever. And you can't cut them out of your life, but right, I'm going to go and see X, who's a note. You might have a friend that you ring up. "How you do?" "Oh, I'm having a terrible time." All you have to do is limit your time with them. You say, right, I'm gonna ring Dave up. I'm going to give yourself 20 minutes. And even say to your partner, in 20 minutes time, can you knock the door or can you ring or something? And yeah, oh, that's terrible. Yeah, work's bad, is it? Oh, the cars, yeah, the kids, yeah, oh, that's terrible. And it's just all one-sided. And get your wife to, oh, sorry, mate, that's somebody at the door. I've got, and but just give them 20 minutes because and I always think it's not very, but what happens if they want to tell you more? Because when you go, they'll get onto somebody else because they have to. They're like vampires.
Yeah,
They have to. They've always got ready. They've always got willing victims to go on to. So what I do is that I spend less and less time with them, and I recognise them, and and I thought, and I chose not to. I choose not to be with them. I spend my time with positive people, like-minded people that make me happy, that make me smile. And that's what I do. When sometimes, like I said, when he's going back to the original question, if one of your listeners are drowning, it's because probably they've spent that much time with drains. And if you imagine you're in the sea and you've got, can you remember those old fast, those cast iron Victorian drains? Oh, like a replica one here. It's like they've got two or three of them around the neck and they're pulling them down. It's just, you know, cut them off and just let them sink. But you've got to because self-preservation is the name of the game.
yeah, definitely. That's a very, very powerful picture you can put into people's minds with that, with the drain, the radiator. Just to clarify that we've obviously throughout this, I think it's an hour and a half, 90 minutes, we've talked about childhood healing, we talked about self-centered fear, humor, imposter syndrome, we've looked at signs and symptoms of self-centered fear. We've also looked at being silly and having fun and humor, that kind of thing. And you mentioned about the idea of, so if you are stuck in self-centered fear, how you can overcome it by using that lifeboat
Yeah.
idea. Can you finish off by telling us what is it that you do and how can people get in contact?
Fantastic. So the, the string to my bow, the main thing that I do, yeah, on my thing is that I was a performance poet and well-being champion. So my work sort of split into two. What I love doing, and I always think if you love it, if you were a millionaire, if I won the lottery, would I still do this? And I think I would. I'd still carry on doing this. You know, I'd
Yeah.
probably not full days. I'd do mornings, but I'd still do it. So the first thing is I'm a poet. I've written 5 poetry collections, and I go into primary schools and I deliver whole school poetry days, which I love. And it's silly and it's funny and it's wiggle your bum and it's end of pier and it's just you're smiling now. You're
Yeah,
smiling
yeah,
now,
yeah.
and it's just really really silly. So if you go onto my website, pepthepoet.co.uk, it's all on there. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, which is at Pep the Poet. And I put lots of poems on there and really, really silly, the very silly poems. So that's the one side of me business that I love. But the one I'm really passionate about, because that I love that one, and the children get a lot out of it. But it's very self-indulgent for me. I just love performing. I love being silly. But what I'm getting a lot of, um, what fulfills me as well, is helping people. Like you said before, 8 years ago, I was in a really dark place, and today I'm not. I live a beautiful life. So obviously, my other side to my string to my boat is I'm a well-being mentor. I give keynote talks talking about self-centered fear and anxiety, um, and it's about helping people become the better version of themselves they can. So for businesses, if you've got a workforce, you want them to be more productive, like members of staff being on long-term sick, retention of staff because they're leaving because they're sad. I can go in there, give my message, and I do genuinely cheer people up, and I give them tools and strategies of how they can become the best person, the best version of themselves they can be. The way I describe myself is I'm not a doctor, I'm more of a chemist. You know when you go on holiday and you might get a bit of a rash from the sea or whatever, you don't go to the doctor, you go to the chemist and you're broken English, you sort of tell them and they give you some cream and it heals it up. I feel like the chemist, if it's something really deep rooted, you might have to go to specialists, you go to the doctors or this. But if you're suffering from low self-centered fear and anxiety, I can give you strategies. I go into secondary schools and like I say, I talk about fear, fear and anxiety, that imposter syndrome, that low self-worth, that fear of needing to fit in, children with behavior problems, vaping, just that peer pressure. Being the authentic you is just wonderful because you can only be
Yeah.
yourself. I think it was Oscar Wilde said, "Only be yourself because everyone else is taken." So I go in and I talk about being the authentic you. I talk about reintegrating the people people that are missing out in school, those that are disengaged. I help them become re-engaged. I talk about transitions from secondary school to primary school to secondary school, or from secondary school to sixth form, and I talk about exam pressure. You know that oh, I'm going. That many young people, they just tell themselves they're going to fail their exams, but you have to put place in. First of all, is it real? Is it happening today? What can you do beforehand? And I give them strategies. So I'm a poet by day, and then for me growing up, I talk about self-centered fear and anxiety. And again, that's that website. Got two different websites. That one's davidanderson.co.uk. No, it's not. It's davidanderson.uk. So the poetry is pepthepoet.co.uk. The talking that I do with adults, businesses, colleges, universities is davidanderson.uk. And I have got an Instagram, but I think it's Mr. _ David Anderson _ lots of underscores, but that was the nearest I could get to David
Yeah.
Anderson. It's Mr.
Well,
David Anderson _
I'll get all the links off you and we'll put it in the show notes and it'll be all accessible via that. Thank you very much, David.
I've had a lovely, absolutely, and I tell you what you just said, we've talked about this, imposter syndrome, and I thought all it's been is a couple of mates having a cup of tea and a chat, and we've covered
Yeah,
so much.
definitely in a 90-minute talk. So thank you.
God bless you, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you.